Hello, everyone. We're here.
Hello. Happy
Lovely
Monday.
to see all of you. Hi.
How are you?
I assume I'm good. How are you? Just checking with chat. Audio's good for me and Jared now. Can hear us all. Everything's good. Still hear music. I don't know why you hear music. I don't have any music going. Weird. Music's still going?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
it's
the music
because
is
somebody
gone.
added music to... There it is. Music gone. There it is. Hi, everyone.
Yay.
As you can see, we've been making some changes around here. So welcome to the Dungeon Cooldown for our finale week, in prep of our finale week for the Heroes of Bingo reunion, the first Heroes of Bingo reunion, I like to say, because I'm sure that we will do more of those. It was a whole, I don't know about you, Jared, but I had a blast.
Oh yeah. Yeah. It was like getting back on a bike that you used to have a lot of fun doing tricks on.
Yep.
And totally forgot about.
Yep.
And it sat in the
and
garage
then you're like,
for too long.
You're like, oh, I can do this. I can do wheelies.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a lot like that. I agree. That was, and obviously we were in the new studio. So that was super cool.
Looks gorgeous.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was shocked. Even though I had seen some of the daily footage when it finally aired again, I was like, wow, that looks amazing.
Yeah. I'm super excited to see that as we move forward with changes that we're making and all the things that are coming in the next couple of weeks. So yeah, first of all, new studio, and if those of you who are really sharp, it is the same studio that Pixel Circus uses. So we are now smack dab in the middle with Pixel Circus. They are very, very lovely on having us as a collaborator, and we're super excited to see what else that we can do and what new shows we might be able to bring about. So thank you, everyone, for being patient with us as we had sort of kept that under wraps. We wanted to try to get things situated before we had any sort of official announcement of what we were doing. So as you can see, Heroes of Bingo reunion is the first thing that we've shot in the studio. Looking forward to much more in that space. So
I'm going to say hi to some people in chat
go
that
ahead.
I haven't seen in a while. So hi, I am the Raven Queen. It's nice to see you again.
Renee, hey.
And to Partos and Just Jules and Treacherous Idol and Frankly Delicious and Sean Patrick and Kitty Scritches. So good to see and Diana of the Night. So good to see so many familiar faces.
Yeah.
It's been a while since we've done one of these. Ron and I could tell because we started launching into diatribes about the new Dungeons and Dragons movie before we even got to streaming here on Twitch.
Which also tells you that Jared and I ourselves have not had enough time to talk as friends.
True.
Just to sit down and hello, Fail Waffle. Good to see you. Welcome. We love you too, Diana of the Night. Let's see. So I guess let's how you doing, Jared? Like how's your life? How's things?
Good. Busy. Very busy. Yeah. My son is going to be starting TK in the fall.
Ooh.
So that's a whole new world.
Now,
right
what
there.
is TK?
TK is before kindergarten.
What's the T stand for?
I don't know.
Transitional kindergarten?
Yes. Yes.
I figured it out in one. Yes.
There you go. You nailed it.
Yeah, I thought you said T, and I was like, does he mean PK? Like pre-K?
No. There's preschool, and then TK, and then transition. Thank you, Kitty Scritches.
Just Jules says, "Ooh, are you prepared for the school germs he'll be bringing home?"
We've already gone through all of that, and I don't want to relive that moment again. It's preschool is just like. It's so bizarre. It's like a massive petri dish where they all just constantly swim in each other's germs, and then everyone just says that that's normal. It's normal, and it's somehow like part of their developmental process is to just get sick and then have their immune system fight it off and then get sick again.
Yep.
Yeah, it's
science says that is a very normal process of being a human being. Yep, absolutely.
Yeah.
And it's also part of
Nobody
why.
tells you that.
Yeah,
though.
man, they
Nobody
don't.
tells you that.
It's like they don't tell you as you get older, like into your 30s and 40s and so on and so forth, that like literally, you know, I was taking the dog out and I sang, you know, everything hurts sometimes. They never tell you that when you're getting young, when you're young and growing older. It's like at a certain age, you'll reach a point where you will have pains because you slept the wrong position.
Yeah.
Who knew?
Totally.
For sure. Oh, the things we learn. It's also a science fact that how someone smells to you, like as you are growing together and becoming in a relationship and beginning to have a family, how someone smells to you early in your life, in that relationship, is a huge indicator of whether your immune systems are compatible and will likely result in a better immune system if you have children. True story. Learn that in science. Yeah. Anatomy. So yeah, exactly, to amass the first thing. It's exactly the reason I brought it up, is the first thing you notice is the smell. So if your person that you're going to have kids with doesn't smell good to you, science. But hopefully, I think it's one of those things where
we can't be together anymore. You don't.
That, or they just need to bathe. One of the two, right? Like it's one.
I
of
was
those
gonna
two
say, what if they just need some deodorant or something?
Right. Anyway, so odd things we discuss when you get Jared and I on the Cooldown.
Oh yeah, that's like the tip of the iceberg of what bizarre things you and I would discuss.
Fail Waffle says, "Just science is my new breakup line."
Yeah.
Just science. Yeah, exactly. Fail Waffle. Exactly.
It's a lot better than "it's not you, it's me."
Yeah,
I would rather just have someone say it's science.
It's science. It's like, okay, fair enough. You know what? I can't argue with that.
You can't.
I mean, you can. The whole thing about science is you can argue with it. That's the
true.
point of it. Yeah, like the whole point of it is like,
hypothesize
proof of what you say. You know, all that kind of stuff. Which is why Ugo understood that as part of his his growth in becoming a better individual. But before we get into all the Heroes of Ingle, the questions that we got discussing the D&D movie, because I think Jared is he's finally seen it and so wants to have a bit of a conversation on that.
Yeah, I haven't seen a movie in a movie theater since before COVID.
Yeah, man.
So just the experience of going into a movie theater, all of these memories and, you know, feelings and thoughts and stuff started flying back in my face.
Yeah.
And I went into a new movie theater, and it's one of those like elevated seats where you can like order food and they bring the food to you, and there's like a little tray and all that jazz.
Yeah.
I didn't get any food, but I did get a double scotch, which helped a lot in enjoying the D&D movie. So if you're a scotch drinker, highly recommend the D&D movie. They pair well together.
Just sneak some scotch into the D&D movie.
They let me bring it in. I bought it there. Yeah.
Funny thing that you mentioned, that's actually kind of a cool website, I think, like doing alcohol pairings with movies.
Yeah.
Like food. That would be cool. Before we get into all of that, I do want to thank everyone for your continued patronage, being here, watching us, supporting us through all of this changes, all the things that are going forward. Without watchers and contributors like you, we could not continue to do this. So thank you so much for all of your donations. And I'd like to mention we had a survey recently. I spent a whole lot of hours breaking down all that data because, one, I like data, and two, it helps me understand things better in this world. And I got to say, we've already started sort of listening to what the data is telling us. You'll see we've already got more stuff in the merch store. That was overwhelmingly, all of you indicated that that's one of the ways that you would love to support the show going forward is merch. So as you can see, if you check it out, those of you who subscribe to our Shopify account should have gotten an email this morning about all the stuff that we have available. I've been working on that as well. Ron making changes. And you will find more merch coming this Wednesday. So keep a lookout. Maybe this Wednesday. Got to check out on some things. Either this Wednesday or the following one. More merch coming. specifically around the Heroes of Bingle, and some more new things that have been offered via our print-on-demand service. So make sure you guys check that out. Thank you for those of you who have already purchased. We appreciate it. And if you're part of our Avatar or Higher Patreon, you should have found in your Patreon inbox a new code for all of you to use to get 15% off of our merch. So make sure you guys check that out if you are our Avatar or Higher. And if you are not, please consider it. All right, that's my spiel.
That was a good spiel. Somebody, Kildurin said, "Will we be getting pie charts when it comes to the breakdown of the data?"
I do have pie charts. I already have them. I don't think we will be sharing them with our audience, just because we want to keep that. A lot of that data is sensitive. People wanted to be honest and not have all their stuff sort of plastered everywhere. So we are using it for internal purposes. But I did make quite a few pie charts. I literally programmed Python to help me sort of break down some of that data. Served as two purposes: one, to keep my programming skills high and functioning, but also just because it's fun. I just enjoyed it. Spent many a 2 a.m. in the morning days working on that stuff. So it does look like he's in his dark cave away from the family, so he can concentrate on us for now.
This is my voiceover studio. So this is my dark cave.
Frank, we got over 130 replies is what we got of our total. So gave us a pretty good number of things to run through and some data. So it was very good. Thank you again, everyone, for those of you who contributed. I did have a couple of people who submitted more than once. And so the way I handled that was, because I didn't want it to skew the data, is the latest reply that you sent was the one that got counted. Anything prior to that was sort of tossed out because your opinions changed from the two times. So I only assumed that you thought more and had a longer sit with it before you decided to give us your information. So thank you, everyone, again, for that. And one last thing, campaign 2 coming back soon. Our cast will be back. I will be at the head of the table for a little while. Jared is taking some time to help out with, as you heard, the TK and his family situation. And then we've got more information coming about future possibilities of shows. And we heard over 50% of the people on the survey indicated they would like more one-shots with guests. So we will also be looking into doing some of that. So thank you again, everyone.
I would like to say, even though the poll is over, the survey is over.
Yeah.
We still check Discord. We still check Patreon. We still read your guys' comments. So if at any point there's something that you want to see more of, or something that you really like, or if there's a guest that you'd really like to see on the show, please put that in either Discord or Patreon, and tag one of us, and we'll definitely add that to the pool of data that Ron has been collecting.
Well, I will say Amy Vorpal was named numerous times in the feedback.
Gotta love more Amy.
Gotta love Amy, and we do. Tailspire. Well, we don't. A lot of the stuff that we do is either immersive roleplay or, tabletop, where I've either painted or we use minis that you can find, and then, terrain. So I don't think there's a plan for us to move digital. That we haven't really discussed that would require us to do a couple of changes in the studio itself to make that work. But there are changes coming to that format, and those will be discussed at a later time once we've made some final decisions on all of that. Still moving some things around and making sure everything maintains quality. That's the number one thing that everyone said. The most important thing is that we have fun and engaging storytelling. So we will continue to be doing that, I think, and most of you have indicated to us that we have been doing that, so we will continue to do that. And after that, it's engaging characters and character backstory, so we'll be doing a lot more of that. And Jared and I are working on getting some of the lore as it is revealed available to you, all of you, and the general public via the tool that we have been using. And hopefully in the next couple of weeks, you will be seeing that. It's a big job. We made a lot of lore, and some of the stuff we got to run through.
There's some stuff in there that we don't really want to leak out to the general public.
Yeah. Indeed. So, speaking of minis, Jared, I know I sent you this picture, and some of you may have seen this if you follow my own Discord, but I have been working on bigger minis, getting bigger prints out. This, if you're familiar, is this is the Leviathan from the Final Fantasy series. It is more designed around the most recent remake of Final Fantasy VII, but I am going to be painting that on stream soon for Game On to End Lupus. That'll be coming in May 5th through 7th is the weekend I'll be painting that. Many of you may have heard me talk about it when we do Heroes of Bingle on Caffeine. My mother has lupus and has since I was a little boy. And so in honor of her, I've been invited by 8BitD and some others in the Lupus Foundation of America's purview to join them in their streaming. So if you will make sure, I'll be talking about it more as we move closer to it, but I'll be actually raising funds all throughout the month of May, but specifically around the event 5th through the 7th. So please, if you don't mind joining me.
Yeah, that's great.
Beyond painting, I'll also be doing some chaos control where you can come and mess with me while I play certain games like Minecraft, Valheim, and Skyrim. And pay a $1 or so and transport me 30 feet in the air, 100 feet in the air. However, there's a bunch of things that I'm going to add for that, so make sure you guys come and hang out. All right, I think we should probably get to our questions.
Yeah, definitely, because I'm sure we're going to go off on tangents. Yes. Sean Patrick did ask, will the lore make it to the Discord? I'm sure we'll be able to put a link in Discord to it. Yeah, we're
trying to give you one location where we've been using something called the Legend Keeper. Yeah. It's sort of a new map based. We've talked about it a little bit before on the Cooldown, but they now have a public facing section of it, and it's very much like a map based wiki. So we're working on imagery and making sure that we don't reveal too much because we don't want too much to come out. So it's just the two of us going through all of this lore in the first 20 or so episodes. So please, we will release that as we have more and more time. So thank you.
Okay. Let's do the Patreon questions.
All right.
First. Ghostbusters Quick Response Unit asks, what was it like putting the old skins on again? I like that because it's like a video game reference.
Yeah. It is.
So I'll let you go first, Ron. What was it like jumping back into Uggo's boots?
I mean, first of all, nostalgia, just waves of nostalgia, right?
Right.
That's just, of course, that's normal, I think. But I think you made a very elegant mention. It's like riding a bicycle that we had forgotten we had. And it was cool. It was, it reminded me of why people love this show so much and why I enjoyed this show so much is because, we still have most of the cast and crew for campaign 2, but it's a different group of people, right? And we're more in the head than we are playing our old characters. Uggo is a character that I know really well. So slipping back into that skin, as it has been mentioned, was great. It felt good. It was you forget sometimes the joy that sort of transition to that character feels. So for me, it was a lot of joy. I could find the Uggo, as serious and as problematic as he was at times, especially towards the later, there's a lot of like play in that I could. And one of my goals has always been as Uggo is, can I make Jeff laugh by just being Uggo and being in the moment? And I got to do that a couple of times, and that really gave me, a lot of good feels in the moment. So yeah, that's how it felt for me. What about you, buddy?
Yeah, I didn't know how it was going to go. I was a little bit nervous in the very beginning not because I didn't know who Civ was or how to jump into that character, because that's like That's like second skin to
Uh-huh.
Jared.
Hmm.
Um, but I didn't know how it was going to work because we weren't setting it in the moment after
Hmm.
the last moment of season one. We were
Yeah.
kind of setting it, I don't know, 5/6 the way through
Yeah.
the story.
Like a what
And
if that for the
yeah, a
heroes of
what if
Bingo.
scenario.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I don't want to spoil anything or give away too much, but there was definitely a moment at the very beginning when we started where I was like, how are we going to shift and make that transition to where we start not from the end, but from, you know, 5/6 the way through. But then when we actually got going and started interacting with each other and jumping back into those characters, it was just so natural that I didn't even have to really try. I didn't
Yeah.
have to force it or, try to come up with jokes or a serious moment or figure out what my motivation was or any of those things. It was just you just got to sort of sit there and be.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I think works really well with these characters and with us as actors and with a team is that we gel so well with each other as those characters in those moments that it just feels natural and smooth.
Yeah.
There's no acting per se. It's more like these characters are really interacting with each other. They're
Yeah.
really, bouncing off of whatever Jeff is
Right.
throwing at us.
Yeah. And
Uh,
Tapartos indicated
yeah,
that Jess playing her old dead character must have been very hard for her. And Fail Waffle says, not technically dead. She was still around. If you haven't seen the end, you should definitely see the end. But what Fail Waffle talks is it would seem to be strange to go back to her as well, to them as well. For us, it was more of um, to really handle anything added at the end would require extended amount of time,
true.
more than we had with Jeff. So, collectively, we sort of had a vote and discussed it and decided that it was probably better for us to go to a what if sort of scenario, and really focus on like a vacation or fun and interesting interactivity. And again, not to spoil anything, you definitely going to want to watch the next episode. But Jeff did, as always, did a fantastic job of really tying it in to the main story. So I'm so excited for you all to see that, and I think it also, just because we have dealt so much with time travel and all that kind of stuff in the past with the Heroes of Bingle, I think that's something going forward that we could continue to do, other what if moments or things that might have occurred in other areas and that kind of stuff, and tie them back to the original story, until such time that we can hopefully get Jeff so that we can maybe revisit the end after things have occurred, maybe many years down the road or in some form of fashion. Just that we have, in order to do that, if that is ever going to occur, we would need numerous days and episodes in order to really give that the credit it's due.
Yeah, that's
So,
true.
yeah. Just because
Overall,
it's,
though, it was fun. It
yeah.
was a lot of fun to
Oh, yeah.
just kind of uh, play around with the what if scenario. But I kind of felt like even though it was a what if scenario, I felt like what happened could have actually happened and
Yep.
been plugged into that story, and it would not have dramatically changed how things panned out
I
because it
agree.
it did fit so well in that little pocket of time.
And I think that just speaks to our abilities as a group, Jeff to all of us as well, right? Like we just sort of melded into it and again got on that bike and just started writing, but also knowing that this needs to feel like a natural thing that just fits in the story was important, and I think we did well with that. I thought we
Yeah.
did really well with that.
Hildren asks, how much advance notice did Jeff have? Because he seemed really well prepared, which of course he always did. So part of the reason why we picked the soiree storyline was because he already had some of that stuff planned from before, and we
Right.
just didn't go there.
Right.
We didn't have time, and we were kind of, beelining towards the next big plot point. So taking a little side adventure or side quest wasn't going to work for that particular moment. But he still
Right.
had all that stuff worked out. So then when we went back and decided to do the what if scenario, he's like, well, I already have this ready to go. And then he just needed to tweak it and fine tune it to make it into a 2-shot.
Right.
Yeah.
Actually, the person who had the least amount of time was me with painting the minis. Because it was literally like 2 or 3 days before, the weekend before we shot, and we shot on a Monday. I had to paint, and get those all done. So it was like, definitely had a weekend paint sesh on that on that week, which was a lot of fun. Of course, you guys all know I really enjoy doing that. And
the minis look great. They were
thank you.
fabulous.
Yeah, and I worked with Jeff. We did some searching for some STLs, and was like, hey, what do you like about these? These, and he was just like, that one, this one, that one, that one. And I was like, okay. And then I went, of course, like I always do, above and beyond by painting, choosing some circus scatter and stuff to make it feel alive. So you'll see much more of that in the next episode.
You should take some pictures of those.
I will. I got to get the minis from Morgan.
Okay.
He still got them, but yeah, because I had to hightail it that day, pretty quick for a meeting. But
we've kind of already answered this question, but Tapartos asks, other than Heroes of Bingle and Kid DM, what have you been up to? So Ron is getting geared up to do the Lupus charity event. My son's going to be going into school soon, and we're also both working. We're working actors, so we got that going. Planning the rest of season 2, and figuring out how that's all going to pan out.
And changing studios, surprisingly, is a lot of work.
Yeah, it's a huge amount of work.
It is.
Yeah, so lots of stuff. Idaho Judd, I loved the dice game with the busker. What have been some of your favorite mini games or puzzles that you've played as a part of TDR or in your own game? That's a good question.
Oh yeah, it's a great question. I mean, I like the busker one. I think that's a really good one. That one was, well designed, especially the sleight of hand processing that's going on one side of that. I've played a couple of like D&D type games in my own games and in other games. And one of them that I sort of read an idea on Reddit and was like, I wonder how I could make this work for what I was doing. And then I actually used it in one of the Jasper's Game Day, Jasper's Game Week games, which is also coming up in May. So keep an eye on that. I will be playing as well as DMing again for Jasper's Game Week this year. And one of them was sort of a try to play soccer while you're also being attacked by denizens of the deep. And so if you have ever had a chance to watch that one, it was I really enjoyed that. Now that's my own one that so of course I enjoyed it, but it seemed like the players were really enjoying it as well. This sort of rumble ball or battle ball is, I think, the original concept, and I just sort of took and co-opted sort of the Mayan game with battle ball and sort of made it like a part of a ritual and an Olympic type event underwater, which I thought was a lot of fun. People seem to enjoy it. What about you, Jared?
Yeah. So I love mini games. I love games within games, and I love creating challenges that aren't just like your standard battle or dice games. Although you can do, Yahtzee or whatever as a fun thing within the D&D game easily because everybody has the dice. But the one thing that I've done in, not necessarily in Dungeons and Dragons games, but in other settings, mainly Westerns or undead Westerns, is I love including poker cards and playing different forms of card games within D&D, and I've also done Magic the Gathering cards within D&D as well, and had like a quick Magic game that would decide the outcome of a big scenario. So like a perfect example would be if you let's say you have two massive armies that are going to battle each other. You could decide that by dice, but you could also decide that by having an actual chess match, or decide that maybe with some alternate funky rules like Nightmare Chess, if you've ever played that. But you could also do that by having a Magic the Gathering game where you play against each other, and whoever wins, and that decides the outcome of the big battle.
Incorporating other games into your D&D gameplay. That's awesome.
Yeah, but the reason why I think poker is one of the best, whether you do Texas Hold'em or some other version of poker, is because if you're doing a Western, it fits the theme of the game so well that it's almost like you don't feel like you're playing a game. It's almost like you're really, because you're playing poker, but it fits the setting so well. Yeah. And so there's even a buddy of mine that created a role-playing game that's a Wild West game where the whole, like if you get into a gun battle or shootout, the whole thing is decided by poker cards. Cool. Like whether or not you hit, whether or not you crit, whether if there's like some kind of debilitating effect that happens from when you get hit. And you can actually, get taken out with a ace of spades. That was the headshot, essentially. So if the bad guy, or if you draw that ace of spades and play it, that's the end of the fight right there. Doesn't matter how many hit points you have or how tough your character is. So it added a level of excitement and danger, because it only came up like 3 or 4 times in the entire time we were playing, but it was scary because it actually meant that you could die from a gunshot within seconds of the fight starting, and you didn't know,
right? Which is super real.
Yeah,
absolutely.
So that would be my suggestion as far as like a game within a game where it also fits the setting and the theme of the game. I think Undead Wild West with poker cards incorporated is my go-to.
Yeah, I definitely love the concept of Undead Wild West for sure. And I'd love to see more one shots, as you guys have probably seen. I tried to incorporate a little bit of more future, hyperpunk kind of cowboy stuff in the town called Ricochet. But just speaking of, like, we want to bring more one shots. So sure. And I think there's even that some of our cast might want to step in the DM role for those small one shots, or so we could be seeing some games run by other members of our cast here soon. So as well as bringing in some other guest DMs, like we did with Gabe and Fortune of Fate. We want to start doing some more of that as well, I believe. I'd like to get back to the table a little more. I love DMing, but I also love playing a character. So Kildoren says, have you ever discussed costuming and dressing up other than at Halloween? Not sure how I feel about it, but just curious how the discussion on that would go. So since day one at Caffeine, I have been indicating, because I am a LARPer as well as a cosplayer, or have been in my life, I would love to do those kind of things. We're just not sure. It's a lot of time and effort. And making yourself look like someone else is a lot of time that we don't always have, especially since we are still working actors and doing other things besides just this. But
I think the tricky thing with the whole costumes is that the dungeon master can't really do costume changes,
Yeah.
So
it would sort of be
just
destroying the immersion. Yeah, it would be destroying the immersion a little bit. So for sure. Do you have other questions?
I'm a big fan of props and like little costume pieces, though. Yeah. Like, it's fun to have the essence of a character.
Yeah.
So we could definitely incorporate some of that.
And that's certainly a concept that we could try for one of our one shots. Like let's do a
Sure.
cosplay one shot, and that kind of stuff. So
Yeah.
yeah. But do we have any other questions from the Patreon or the Discord?
Yes. I want to comment on one thing real quick,
Sure.
though. Taparto said, one of my campaigns back in like 97 from a large battle, we brought out the Risk game and decided who won the war based on who won Risk. That is awesome. That is a long game. That being said, that reminds me about Warhammer as well. If any of you out there love battle games, highly, highly recommend. I know Henry Cavill really likes Warhammer as well.
Mm-hmm.
But the rules for Warhammer, in my opinion, for big battles, like really big battles, work better and make more sense than the actual Dungeons and Dragons rules for big battles. For smaller battles, like little guerrilla warfare type stuff, I think D&D still has that pocket cornered, or cornered that portion of the market. But
my first D&D game was a AD&D game. And in AD&D, even before AD&D, they had chainmail. I don't know if you remember this. Chainmail was sort of a progenitor to Warhammer. It was large battle maps, minis on a map, kind of meant for, the original implication of minis on a map was for in D&D's progression since the 70s was only for large scale battles. It was never originally intended to be for like dungeon delves. That did come afterwards because people were like, well, I have minis on the back. Can't we do dungeons that way too? But it was originally intended to just be a war game at the table. So I absolutely agree. Warhammer has such a lockdown on that and have been doing it for so long. They just understand that scenario so well. I'd love to see them work with the D&D and sort of develop their own rule set for that. I think that would be super interesting.
Sure.
But sorry. Again, we're already in 45 minutes and we got more questions and stuff.
I know.
We may have to go a little longer for our audience just to make sure that they're getting their worth.
No, we can do it. Cool. Idaho Judd, my conspiracy theory with Soiree Fantastique Part 2 is that since it's what if alternate reality, it clearly has to end in a TPK. Sorry, guys, we'll miss. I don't know if that's a question or a comment.
I don't think that's a question. And I think that's also sort of, singular thought. And we talked about this. This is one of the reasons why we changed Force of Good and Force of Evil is because some of y'all just want to see people die. Like go watch Last of Us. There's plenty of that. You just want to see D&D characters that you love perish. So yeah, I don't think that was a question, but thank you for the input.
Yeah, don't want to burst your bubble, but seven Uggo are very hard to kill.
Yes.
Okay, so that's it for the questions, but we have a bunch of questions in chat.
Yes,
Fail Waffle. This campaign has always been a live show. What were the pros and cons for you two personally in having it pre-recorded? To me, I missed the live feeling. I mean, there's something to be said for pre-recorded because, if we have a technical issue or if, we're starting a little bit late or something like that, there's
we can hide
pressure.
The seams. We can hide
the seams. The pressure is gone, which is great. Especially for people like Sean and what have you that are behind the scenes. It takes a lot of the heat off. That being said, I liked the feeling of a live show because part of what has made us be different than all the other shows that are out there is that you guys can influence the game while we're going. Now, we had a lot of people, donate, which is great, to get blessed dice and cursed dice and advantages and disadvantages. And we use the majority of all of that. Right. And we had a great force card go off too, which dramatically affected the story, and in fact also dramatically affected the poster that JD Illustrate is working on from the show. Don't want to spoil that, but I love, since it's an improv show, I love when the audience gets to throw their twist and turn and influence whatever has been happening up until that point. I think that's what makes us different and engaging and exciting and interesting to watch. But the
Yeah.
pre-recorded definitely has its pros when it comes to the technical side of things.
Yeah. And also you can, and I think, I've been seeing a lot of this on TikTok and other social media areas where people have started accusing things like Dimension 20 for being pre-written or scripted. And I think some of that is because when you pre-record, you can edit. You can cut out the parts that are too much. You can cut out all the fat. Even if you went down a rabbit hole, you can sort of chip that away if it doesn't really make sense to show in a pre-recorded format. With the live show, we can't really do that, right? We have to self-edit. It's just like in improv. You have to sort of rely on your team to edit you in order for that to work out. I also noticed that it's a lot easier to get a shorter show when it's pre-recorded. You can really cut down on the time that it takes to get through the story. Whereas in a live show, that's why we do 3 or 4 hour formats. So there are a lot of pros and cons on both sides. And one of the biggest cons that I think we have with the live show, the biggest pro clearly being our audience can interact with us in the moment, and I love that. I want to preserve that as much as possible. But the hard part of a live show is that it is prone to technical issues and to time. And we find, especially for audiences to adopt a new show, live shows that run from 3 to 4 hours a night every week for an extended period of time sort of throws people away who are not already invested in the storyline. So that's one of the biggest things that we've been trying to solve for the channel is how do we get more new audiences to be invested in the long-term thing? Because it's a lot to ask anyone to be like, hey, wait, we got 20 episodes of a show. Even if it's even hard to them after we've done a 15-minute breakdown for them. Even when you do a dungeon rush, it's hard to get new people into the storylines, even if you do that. So that's sort of why when the audience asks for new shorter shows that include maybe guests or are sort of tangential to the things that we're doing in addition to the main campaign, we think that's a really good idea because that automatically allows new people to enjoy a thing and they go, hey, I really like these people. Then there's hours of content of 2 campaigns for them to really start to dig their teeth into. So that's sort of some of the thought processes in my head in terms of like production and trying to make sure that this show works out long term. So
that's a valid point. A lot of the other D&D content that's out there right now, it's all for the most part, a lot of it anyways, is pre-recorded, and they record those things in long chunks, but then they chop it up into shorter segments and release them as episodes, which makes it more easily digestible by whoever's watching, by the watchers.
And David Gen Pro, you're not alone. We've seen that in a variety of ways where even old fans sort of, during the pandemic and right before the pandemic, it was easier for us to get people because they didn't have jobs. And, we're on the West Coast and a lot of our viewers are on the East Coast. So we start much later in the East Coast and stuff like that. So that's where pre-recorded has a big pro. But again, we lose with a pre-recorded. I feel like we really lose what is our strongest asset, which is y'all interact with us in real time. And so that's,
I mean,
that's
how many times throughout season 1 and season 2 have things been completely shaped by the audience?
Yep.
I know, Ron, you and I are constantly saying, well, what is the audience throwing our way, suggestion wise and force card wise and that kind of thing, and how can we incorporate that more into the story? I mean, there are full on characters like Slushy who wouldn't exist if it wasn't for the watchers.
If it wasn't for the watchers, exactly. Slushy wouldn't be around. Thank you, Mr. Macedonian. I hope I said that correctly. Thank you for subscribing. 21 months. That's incredible. Thank you so much. Absolutely. And, we still want to grow the YouTube, and I think we still want to grow YouTube Live. But I think we're also going to really stick with Twitch because it's, for now, been the best way for us to sort of do the live interaction. It's the easiest way for us to do that. It's less technically there's a smaller technical hill to continue to do that. And there, just a heads up, there will be some changes to the interactivity. There have been some changes requested, and we will be doing that. Nothing that you love is going away. It's all just getting better, because again, interactivity includes you helping us shape how this channel becomes a thing. Yes, thank you again for all of that. There was another question that I think Fail Waffle had that we didn't get to. I sort of touched on it even before.
Which do you two? Yeah, I got it. Which do you two enjoy more, DMing or being players? I imagine the answer is it depends, but would love your thoughts on it. I love how Fail Waffle asks questions knowing what the answer is going to be, but she just wants us to answer it anyways.
Yep. Yep.
Fail Waffle. It depends. That's my answer.
Yeah. It does depend. I agree.
I like them both. They're just totally different, you know?
Right.
Totally different rush, totally different feel. One's a lot more challenging, but also can be way more rewarding as well. So I mean, I think Ron would agree with me on this. I would never want to have to choose. I would never want to have to be like, I can only do one for the rest of my life, because that would just kill me, because it's so much fun to be on the creative side of things and get to sculpt a story and a world and characters and take people on a journey. But it's just as much fun to jump into someone else's world and somebody else's setting and story and be that protagonist, be that, you know, that what is it, path seeker, or trailblazer.
For me, it's two separate things, and they each scratch itches that I like. But then they also come with, you miss the other part of it, because, you know, one interesting thing is there was one or two people, you know, a handful of people who were like, I don't like it when DMs play characters.
Oh, I've seen that several times. I've seen people do whole YouTubes on that subject.
Dude, that blows my mind. That blows my mind. And not that I, you know, have your opinions. It's, you know, you like what you like. I'm not denigrating that at all. But for me, it's like, as a storyteller, you are literally creating characters, so you sort of have to imbibe them. And because I am also a player, for me, it feels like it's a disservice if I don't interact with other cast members.
Yeah, I agree. I think the point that they're trying to make, and it's one of those things where it's almost like clickbait at a certain point, in my opinion, but the point that they're trying to make is the DMs that have a player character who travels with the other players the entire time and acts as a player and heavily influences the choices of the party and the game itself by acting as a player and not as an NPC. And there is a difference between
okay, that I see. Right. And I think we have been very good about being NPCs rather than necessarily players.
Of course.
But I totally hear that. Now, I do actually have, you know, in one of my games, I have introduced characters that come in and act as a player, but only as a storytelling device. So I feel like it's okay. And I totally understand individuals who don't like that. Just like I don't necessarily like all horror, but there are people who will watch, like my wife, who will watch and ruin my Netflix and my Amazon, so that everything that's recommended to me is horror. But I still love her, and she's still my wife. So, you know, it's that kind of thing. We're allowed to like what we like, and we're allowed to like what we dislike. So thank you for that input. But for me, I don't necessarily, I probably wouldn't do it for the show, because we have good enough cast where, you know, we have a good enough player characters that you don't really need to do that. But sometimes in home games that helps, especially for new players, right? This is what I've noticed is for new players, the DM playing a player helps them a lot. And that's kind of where I'm getting at with what, you know, having that.
I think there's a way to have I mean, it's still an NPC technically,
right?
But I think there's a way to do it tastefully so that it doesn't control or disrupt or or even destroy what the players,
Right.
which at the end of the day are the ones that get to make the big choices,
Right.
destroys their, what is it? What's the word? Their choice
Agency.
making.
Their agency.
Agency. Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah, the Canadian Dwarf said that. IDM and have a character that travels with the party, but he's basically there just impacting the progression. He fights alongside them, but he's not the one making party decisions.
There you
go. Like an assist. Yeah.
Yeah.
A fancy hireling.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Frankly delicious. A 1/2 session guest player / party betrayer can be heaps of fun. Any guest players planned? I don't know if we want to release that information yet. We definitely have some guests that are on the docket, but we're getting season 2 back up and running at the studio, and then once that's up and running, then we will move on to having the one shots or the guest DMs and that kind of thing.
Yeah. Again, moving studios is it's a lot of work, and that's sort of why we've been doing things like Kid DM and the Heroes of Bingo reunion. And keep in mind, while we're making that change, we're also having to shoot those things. So there's been a lot of work behind the scenes that you guys just don't see because you don't need to, and it would be boring to watch us edit things. But there is a lot of work going on here that it may appear that things have sort of slowed down, but it's not. We're transitioning to this new studio, and then we'll be launching again.
Now I want to see a webcam stream of just someone working on an edit.
It'll be like 3 people who watch it. It'll be like 3 people.
And criticizing it. They'll be like, no,
that's not how you do that. Yeah, exactly. But
you're gonna put music underneath that? Yeah. What music?
Scully is my homegirl. Hi, it's so good to see you.
Hi.
Also, how did you prepare to jump back into campaign 1, practice the voices, rewatch episodes during the jumping off point, etc.? I watched the 2 episodes prior to where we were jumping in. I watched those 2 because we sort of talked about it, and someone shared that where that was.
Right.
And then, in that moment, hearing myself talk like Uggo again, it's like, oh right, that's how I do it. Much easier for me to remember because I could, it's just sort of like jump my jaw forward and let my lips be real loose. So yeah, there's definitely that. Scully is some watching what we had before just to remind ourselves where we were and sort of the tone and feel of where we were in the moment when we went on this what if adventure, as well as listening. For me, hearing what I've done before helps me really nail the voice again. Like a mimicry, sort of, just some sort of mimicry.
When is Jeff going to be a guest player? That's Willmeister 420. Y'all need to go on Jeff's Twitter or whatever and just harass him. Be as vicious as you want to be, because we have asked him so many times to be a player, and he comes back with, I'm nervous. I don't think I would do a good job. I'm intimidated. And Ron and I are sitting there going, it's so much harder to be a DM than it is to be a player. Why would you not want to do that?
Yeah.
But I think there are some people out there where they're just more comfortable in one position rather than the other. But I think getting Jeff to come out, whether
do not cyberbully Jeff. Do not cyberbully Jeff. We are not suggesting that you harass him.
I want you to cyberbully Jeff. No. I fully endorse.
We cannot do that.
Yes. Please. Tell him I sent you. Say, this is from Civ, and then put a little dagger emoji and stick him. No, I'm just trying to, my point is that we have tried numerous times to get him to be a player, and for whatever reason, he's much more comfortable being a dungeon master.
I mean, the man's an actor by trade too, so he's done Shakespeare for God's sake. So I'm with you. And like, Jeff, you would be an amazing player. I don't know, but I think it has a little bit to do with that he's basically he's been a forever DM, and I think that can sort of be a headspace sometimes. So I get it, but at the same time, it's like, Jeff, dude, I know you're a good actor. Like, you'll be fine. Also, do not cyberbully Jeff.
Do it.
um,
Now I just want a gif of Civ stabbing just so I can get everyone to send that
yeah.
to
Tool
chat.
Mask, you asked, what about more uses for channel points? That is definitely something that we have been discussing and talking about in terms of our technical requirements. That is not as easy as a solution as you might think. And so we are still sort of exploring that technically. I've made some recent progress in my own world about that, where channel points can be used for interesting things, but it does add a bit of technical complexity that we have not yet explored in the studio space. And since studio creation sort of requires a lot of tech in the background that is very finicky sometimes, adding any new points of technical data can be risky. And so we have to approach that carefully. And it has everything to do with how Twitch implements channel points in the background in a technical standpoint. But definitely working on it. We are definitely working on it.
Yeah, Ron and I have discussed some options like being able to cash in like a huge amount of channel points and have it actually affect the game like an advantage or a disadvantage or even a possible force card. But I think Ron hits the nail on the head as far as like we already have multiple ways of getting all these points added up, and then it goes onto a special docket, and then we have to implement whatever's on that docket, whether it's an advantage or disadvantage or a force card and that kind of thing. So it just takes a lot of work to make that portion work, let alone adding the channel points to that mix.
Yeah. And that was kind of one of the reasons why on the survey, one of the questions was 1-to-1 polls, so one vote to one viewer polls, or would you like to see polls where you could use channel points to increase the number of votes that you get?
Yeah.
And that was overwhelmingly just no one liked that idea. So
yeah. Yeah, I would love, I don't know. I kind of feel like it's as long as it's not like a huge plot point in the story, I kind of feel like it would be fun to have a poll where they can use channel points to, I don't know, just to throw out an idea, decide what's available inside of the shop that the player characters are going into.
Yeah, that's a really good idea, actually. Yeah. Like using channel points to vote on a moment as it happens and say, we want merch for this. That's really cool, actually. Again, it's still a technical behemoth to handle, but definitely a cool idea. I really like that idea, Jared.
The Canadian Dwarf. Also, what was your first D&D character you made, and do you remember it? I remember mine. Do you remember yours?
My first character? Oh, yeah, for sure.
Yeah. What was it?
I played a elf named Veritur Elensar, and he was an abandoned orphan. His king father had him illegitimately with a young upstart sort of witch in the forest. He sort of left them. He was a king from a very faraway land. He left them to their own devices. The mother eventually passed, and from old age, they had a good life. They were not, the typical, oh, my life was horrible. He grew up well, but his mother did end up passing, and she was then later reanimated by a necromancer, and that drove him to become a druid, so that he would no longer devoted his life to the annihilation of necromancy.
Wow.
Yeah.
That
was my first character.
I was gonna say, dang. When I first got into D&D, I was incredibly young, and I had found the books, and I read all the books, and I wanted to play so bad that I convinced my brother, who was a year younger than me, to play. And so my first experience was actually running the game, and I had no idea what I was doing. And he made a Minotaur barbarian that I still remember to this day, and he just killed everything. Like it was like gladiator style, like a new thing would come into the arena and then he would kill it. Yeah.
The traditional Roman murder hobo.
Yeah. exactly.
David
But we were
Pro.
also like
Okay.
little kids. So
yeah, for sure, of course. So, like that's why that's murder hobo's a thing. It's because of what everybody does when they first want to. Yay, being human. David Gen Pro, yes, we do have a lot more usage of the blessed and cursed dice in the second episodes than we did the first. It just naturally, as you saw in the first one, there wasn't a whole lot of rolling going on in role play, and I think Jeff really wanted to use it because he always has a hard time, especially when you and I are in the combat situation. He always has a hard time sort of countering us. So I think he was sort of saving them for that moment.
Yeah, it's rough when you have two players in your game who have characters that aren't. I don't think Ugo or Civ were power gamed.
No, not at all.
In any stretch of the imagination. But we also like we know what we're good at, and we know what we can do well. And if you present a target to us, then we will go right at that target and annihilate it as quickly as possible. And if we can tell that that's not your big bad evil guy, then we're going to save our guns for that. And then when you eventually reveal that person, too bad, so sad.
Yeah, man. Yeah. Well, and that comes to just having two characters that they know battle. That's what they're good at. It's what they are for, and it's why they were there.
Right.
So yeah, I think Jeff, he said many times he struggled with that because we were so good at what we were doing.
Well, it's also I think Jeff had it doubly hard, and it's been tricky for us as well as dungeon masters, because the audience helps the players so much with advantages and even force cards to a certain degree that I mean, the challenge rating system in Dungeons and Dragons is already broken, but it's even further broken if you add those extra bonuses to the players. So upping that challenge rating without it making it just sheer death is very, very, very tricky. It's a very fine line.
And I mean, even on the other end, when you do have individuals who want to do, make it challenging or harder, you have to be very careful, because the balance and CR and all of that kind of stuff with hit points and amount of damage you do per round is very finicky with 5e. So for sure it's a tricky balancing act for sure. Yuhu Su, thank you for subscribing. We appreciate it. There was one other person who subscribed. Tuomas, thank you for gifting a sub to Scully is my homegirl. That was very kind of you. And I said Mr. Macedonian, so great. There was one individual here, Rollo of Light. Thank you. First time chat. And the first thing they have to say is, I've only just started the Stormborn campaign, but just wanted to say, have been having a lot of fun watching it. That is such a nice first thing to say. Like, your first thing could have been, hey, or sup. But it was that. And I really appreciate you, Rollo. I really do. Thank you very much. It is nice to be praised on occasion. So I clearly did not get enough of it as a kid, so thank you. Tepartos, thank you again for the gift of subscription to Rayo. My eyes aren't working. Not Rollo. Rayo. Apologies. Any other questions? Did we have any from Discord?
Let me check real quick. I didn't see any from before. My question, AGM McLeod or AG McLeod. How did it feel coming in as players again? How was it getting back into the Civ Ugo personality? We kind of already talked about that one.
We did.
Yeah. Fail Waffle put stuff in Discord, but I feel like she already put stuff in chat. This campaign has always been a live show. What were the pros and cons? Yeah, we did that.
Yeah,
okay.
Yep. She was just making sure that we got it.
Yeah, we got it.
Also, Fail Waffle, thank you for showing me love. I appreciate it. Thank you for that.
I have to talk about the D&D movie, even if it's
let's do it
for 5 minutes.
Now's the time. Yep,
so we're gonna move on from the dungeon run and start talking about the D&D movie. If you haven't seen it yet and you don't want any spoilers, tune out.
Now's the time to
watching.
leave.
Yeah. Thank you for watching and listening. We love you. Um, yeah, let's talk about it. So
Before you get into it,
go
you
ahead.
said that you went into the theater for the first time. Did you
Yes.
get served the "You Are Heroes" bit for coming to see a
Yes.
oh my god. Okay.
Yes.
I get why they do it, and I totally understand it. I understand why they do that. But when
Yeah.
I saw it, there were back-to-back ones. There was one with oh, I always forget her name. Why do I forget her name? She's huge. She used to be married to Tom Cruise. Did Eyes Wide Shut.
Yeah. Kim Basinger?
No.
No.
Although that would have been a much better movie if Kim Basinger was in Eyes Wide Shut. No joke, no joke. Nicole Kidman.
Nicole
Thank
Kidman,
you, Gateway
thank
Guy.
you.
Nicole Kidman. There was one by Nicole Kidman, and that one was like, oh, this is super nice. They're just sort of being cinematic. And then right after that, they are served the one with the cast. Now, here's my issue with the one where they served us with the cast. No one wanted to be there. It was
Yeah, you
very
could tell.
clear that none of them
Yeah.
wanted to be there. That they were just
yeah.
there because they were told to be there and that was their job.
100%.
They
Yeah,
did not want
100%.
to be there. And I think is what really struck me the most. It was super obvious that they were sort of forced to do this. Which I actually think says more about the actors than anything else. Like, guys, you have a job. Like, you fake things a lot. You could make that feel more real for us. And again, I get, like, I firmly believe that we should probably start getting back to movie theaters because that's the engine of films. And as we've seen, the live stream stuff, though I love being able to sit in my room and watch whatever I want to watch when I want to watch it, I feel like it's not sustainable. And I think movie theaters is part of sort of the American is part of the reasons why movies became so big. So now that it's getting a little bit more safe, or at least manageably safe, we're moving into an epidemic rather than a pandemic. I get it. So that's all I wanted to say about that. Like right up start, that was.
I had totally forgotten about that because
Dude.
that's when I had my scotch. So
Dude. And it sort of
I was not listening.
I was so excited about the D&D movie, and then I saw that, and I was like, well, that was weird. That was sort of strange for me.
Yeah.
But D&D.
Yeah, I mean, I get it. I understand why they're doing that, because they want people to come see stuff in theaters, and they don't want you to just wait until it comes out on Netflix or whatever and stream it from home. I get that. The thing is like, I grew up going to the movie theater.
Same.
I worked at a movie theater.
Same.
I love the experience of going to a
movie theater is why I got into acting, dude. It's literally why I got into it.
You don't have to sell me on it. You don't have to tell me I need to come back to a movie theater. Just make the movies, put them in the theater, make them good. I will come. Period.
And then and you don't have to like make me. You don't have to be like, oh, you're a hero. It's like, what are you talking about? No, I'm not a hero. If this is what heroism is, this is why we have problems in society. If this is what you think is heroism, we have an issue. Yeah.
And the thing is like it's a different experience, and it's a different rush, and it it's almost like it tickles a different part of your brain when you go to a movie versus streaming it from home. But there are pros to watching stuff at home,
right.
There's benefits there too,
especially for those people who have social anxiety, right? Like, of course,
right.
And Mr. Macedonian says maybe movie theaters need to get better consistent projection and sound cleaner and more comfortable. I think it's also just like, it's the same issue. I think movie theaters have the same issue that Disney has with Disneyland and Disney World, which is who they were built for can't afford to go there.
Mm.
And I think that's sort of, part of it is like, you guys got to find a way to make it should not cost a family of four $100 to see a movie and have popcorn at the movie theater. It should not cost them that much. I get why it happens, and I get that we want to make as much money as we possibly can because we're a corporation in America and that's what we're supposed to do. At the same time, you can find ways to make that more accessible, because if you drop prices slightly, you'll get more people. And because you get, as we've learned from anything, if you drop prices a little bit, if you get two people that you wouldn't normally get, if you drop them by a small amount, you've made more money than you would have if you didn't. So for me, it's that. It's look, the people who make the decisions need to get back to the ground level of things. One, they make too much money, so they don't understand what it means to actually struggle. And two, they need to sit around families who are in movie theaters. Simple as that. That's just my opinion. I may get blackballed in film if anyone ever sees this, but that's how I feel about it. That's just my
Yeah,
my
Dave and Pro, thank you. So what did you think of the movie? Okay, we're moving on. We're moving on. We're already way over time. Okay, so here's first off, just as a blanket statement, I enjoyed it. I had a good time.
Yeah.
I was drinking scotch. That definitely affected my ability to have a good time.
Yeah.
But overall, it was fun. I had very low expectations. Then I had a lot of my friends tell me that it was good. So then I allowed my expectations to rise to a certain level. And then when I went in and watched it, did it meet those expectations? Almost. But it was still way better than what I initially thought it was going to be, just looking at the initial previews and the weird like general storyline, and you couldn't quite tell where they were going to go with it. I'm just talking about the previews, trailers.
Yeah.
And then when it got started, I could tell that they were just trying to like shotgun as much exposition down your throat as possible so that they could get to the action and the jokes and the funny bits and the quirky scenes and the weird, CGI monsters and creatures and what have you. So I saw where it was going early on. But if you go into watching the movie, this is just me personally, but when I went into the movie and I went in there with the mindset of just not expecting, a lot of plot or a lot of serious, story arcs, and just lighthearted action and fantasy fun, you will be happy. You will be happy with I think you will be happy with the experience. Are there things that I wish was better? Are there things that I wish, or I think could have been easily, maybe even like for even a lower budget, changed and given people a little bit more immersion into the D&D world? Yes, of course. And one thing that I was saying to Ron before we even started the stream today is I really think that it's a mistake when you're already in a made up world. You're already in a fantasy world. You're in a fantasy setting. There's make believe monsters. There's make believes people and creatures and make believe settings. And even if you shoot it in a beautiful location like they did, several different locations like they did, there is something to be said for putting practical effects on screen, not only for the actors, for the setting, for the interactivity, but for the world building. And the one thing that I thought they jumped into wholeheartely was, well, we'll just CGI it. We'll just CGI that, the special effects of that magical spell, that's just CGI. That monster, that's just CGI. Turning this beautiful landscape into a war-torn area, or it's on fire, we'll just make that CGI. And I think
cheaper.
I think that's a huge mistake, because one of the things that really allows me as a viewer to get immersed is if the believability, and this is Jurassic Park is a great example, the believability of the moment allows my brain to suspend my disbelief and allow me to really become immersed into the story and these characters. And it was interesting to me that they decided to make the majority of the characters, the protagonists, human
or human-like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was like, that's an interesting choice, because how hard would it have been to make one, I don't know, a drow, or make one of them, even if you wanted to go full born, like full dragonborn or full Aarakocra or something like that. I think that would have paid dividends. I really, really do. I think it would have allowed people to to become more immersed instead of being jerked out of the moment at times with people obviously interacting with CGI, let alone if you made the displacer beast a practical monster. And
Yeah,
they did it with Jurassic Park, so I know it's doable. I know it's possible to have those things happen and to blend the CGI with the practical effects. So that would have been the number one thing that I would have changed about.
I think Fail Waffle sort of hit the head on for me, which was the tiefling that they involved wasn't really a tiefling. It was human with horns.
Right.
It wasn't as tieflings have been described in the 5e universe. I did enjoy, Tapartos indicated they didn't necessarily like the puppet CG, the puppet stuff in the beginning. I enjoyed that. I liked the Aarakocra practical puppet. I liked the Dragonborn puppet. Those were, and mostly probably because I'm a Jim Henson freak, and so that sort of gave me nostalgia feels for that. Is the Jim Henson stuff like, Dark Crystal and all that, but. Yeah, the Tabaxis were a little odd for sure. But I think one place they really missed is they could have put a halfling in the party. That wouldn't have been too much, I think. They could have put, instead of just using it as sort of, a scene to love the barbarian more, it could have been part of the party and really drawn a little bit more of that dynamicism in the world. Now, in general, I have a story about expectations and its effect on movies. So the new original with Hulk movie with Eric Bana, right, which was torn apart. I didn't see it. I was told how horrible it was by many people, and then I went and finally saw it. And when I saw it, my expectations were so low that when I saw the movie, I loved it. That says a lot about me and how I'm impacted by what other people say about movies and expectations. So I have been, since that moment, and learned from that interaction, I have tried my best for movies that I want to like. I try my best to not have any expectations going in. And sometimes that looks like having expectations that this is just not going to be what I want it to be. And I think that's a general healthy thing, because someone else's vision is never going to be the vision that you have in your head for the thing that you want. And so when I saw the movie, my general feel is it's a good adventure film. I think it's a nice action adventure film, just in general, whether it was a D&D or not. And I think they needed to do that in order for it to be successful. If you go too much into the niche, you won't get the kind of audiences that you need for there to be money made and to make more. So I think the directors did really well in trying to make that the
accessible
to a general audience enough so that it's just like, oh yeah, this is just a fantasy adventure comedy. But then all of and I think David Gen Pro hit the head on when he said there were Easter eggs and the things that they did that you go, those who are in the niche and in the know, I was in the theater, because I saw it very early because of Amazon. Thank you, Amazon. The people that were there were clearly D&D freaks, because everybody had their D&D stuff, and it was clear like we were all the same group of like hardcore D&D players, and they had a blast, and it was because we saw all the cool Easter eggs in it. Also, I got to mention the Tiefling Druid changes wild shapes enough time that even a level 20 druid could not wild shape that many times. So I had to sort of like anachronistically say, oh, she must have an item that allows her to do that so many times. She has a magical item or something. But the number, I sat there as it was happening, I was counting the number of times. I was like, oh my God, okay, well now that's past level 20. I don't know what's going on. But it was but at the same time, I really love that whole sequence, because one, it shows what you could do with wild shape. Like you could do some of that with wild shape. You legit could use those as ways to like get out of a dangerous situation. But it was also just a fun sort of nod to what occurs. Another moment I found in there that I really liked as a D&D player is the concept of concentration being broken. Spell concentration being broken, which I really enjoyed. It was sort of very was passed over quickly, but I enjoyed that. And then
Right.
I don't know if you noticed this, and the only reason I did is because I watched the D&D cartoon as a child. But the D&D cartoon players are in the maze. Yeah,
Yeah, of course.
That was a lot of fun.
I saw that when I was watching the preview. I was
yeah,
like, wait
same.
a minute.
Hey, wait a minute. yeah. For sure. So.
Yeah. I like how
thought
they're
there
in
was
the maze and getting hunted down and killed.
and I love that they were like at the end there and they're like, nope, this is not what we're doing. We're leaving.
Yeah.
And it's like, that's a D&D party move. A D&D
Yeah.
party would do that. They would get to the end and be like, no, this is not what we're doing. We're going to go elsewhere and do something different. And I loved that. That I truly loved. And I got to say, I loved the Paladin. I thought the Paladin was true to sort of what people think about Paladins often. And two, it was played with such debonair suaveness and just truth to the comedy bits that I want to see more of that character so much. I really want to see more of that character.
Yeah. I mean, that's one of the characters that I think would have been
Fail Waffle, that was improvised. That whole situation was improvised, by the way.
Is he going to walk around the rock?
Yeah, so that rock move that he does at the end when he walks away, they didn't tell him what to do. And so he just did it. That's just what he chose as a character. It was totally improvised. I was reading an article.
Yeah. Yeah, it fits.
Yeah.
That was one of the characters that I thought would have been very interesting to have them be a non-human.
Yeah.
Because they were already sort of from a different land and
super powerful.
Had a different code and
I like that they made him part of the Red Wizards of Thay. Like I really did enjoy that part though. That part
You mean he was Thayan, but he was Thayan,
a
red
He
wizard.
wasn't a Red Wizard, right? He was a Thay,
Yeah.
but that's what part of the Red Wizards of Thay background.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed the Red Wizards of Thay stuff because I don't think it's the first time I've seen it done well and really explain kind of in a quick way what those things are. But we didn't see the main bad guy at all. Like we didn't even see the super bad. But I think that's because they're planning on more films. And so you deal the first film like you do in D&D, right? You deal with the first lieutenant before you deal with the bad guy.
It'll have to continue to do well for them to make another one.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yep, for sure.
And it'll have to do well overseas.
Well, this one did well.
Sure.
This one did very well, right? They already said that it did really well. So,
cool. What did you? I'm interested from the chat. Score 1 through 10. What did you? Those of you that saw it, what did you think? Did you like it? Did you just kind of go in there not expecting much and were pleasantly surprised? Did you absolutely hate it? If so, why?
Also,
I would love to hear.
Yes, please give us that. But David Gen Pro, I don't think he was a bard. I think he was a rogue with the skill of being able to play the lute, because we never see him cast magic. He never casts magic.
Yeah, he wasn't really much of a fighter either.
No, he wasn't. That's what I mean. I think he was a rogue who had the lute playing ability. He took that as part of his backstory.
Yeah.
I did love that he was part of why can't I think of the group name? Oh my god.
Harper's,
thank you. I love the Harper stuff. So I love that he was part of the Harpers for sure. And it felt very Harper. What his whole story felt very Harper.
Yeah.
Source.
I kind of feel like part of the reason why he was cast, Chris Pine, is because he is one of those actors, and he did it in Star Trek and he's done it in a ton of his movies, where no matter what is happening on screen, what crazy thing might be occurring around him, or what setting he's in, or what costume he's in, he's just a very grounded, real actor. It's the same thing with Jurassic Park. They didn't necessarily cast names. Right. I mean, they weren't names at the time when they did the movie. Anyways.
Right. They became
they became names. But you cast people that no matter what the scenario is or what kind of wacky situation they're in, they play it real, they play it grounded, and they play it believable. And there's very little, if at all, moments of like over the top cheesy character choices. They're never playing for the laugh intentionally. They're playing the moment as real as possible. And I think that was one of the reasons why it works, even with all of the CGI, is that they cast actors that either weren't names or were names, but were very grounded, real, believable actors.
Chris Pine's character felt like you would find that in a good D&D game. You would find that character made by a player in a very good D&D game. It definitely felt that way. He wasn't overpowered. He just had a lot of hope, and wanted to do the right things and was trying to do the good things, and that kind of storyteller I've experienced in D&D and just the table. So definitely enjoyed that. We're getting generally like 7 and 8s, pretty solid 7.5, I think.
Yeah, nobody hated it. Yeah, no 10s though. I noticed that there's no 10s.
And I don't think, it's not a movie I would say I was going to go see for like award-winning stuff. But it is something that I would say I felt relieved, and I've seen some people say that they felt relieved, like Tittlebit, relieved that it turned out the way it did. I am too, given all the other D&D movies that we've had, especially the one with Jeremy Irons. Those were just... yeesh. So to go into that, come out and go, all right, that was an okay movie, was like the best scenario I can imagine.
Agreed. Yeah. So I don't really have any other strong comments on the movie as a whole. I liked a lot of the action sequences. There were a couple moments where I was just wanting them to get to more action, more fighting, which is not how I normally am. Normally when I'm watching a movie, I love the scenes in between more than the actual fights. But I think because it's Dungeons and Dragons and because it's so rare to see Dungeons and Dragons style fights happen on a movie screen, like it's relatively easy to find on a streaming service or in a cartoon or something like that. But for like a live action, so to speak, movie, I was enjoying those battles. And I think,
even though they weren't probably accurate to, like, that wizard battle was a lot of fun, but that's not accurate to D&D at all.
Yeah, not at
the
all.
The wizard is not taking front face hits and still ticking. Not happening.
Yeah, or being attacked by an owlbear.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. But I knew a lot of that stuff was going to happen, so I shut off the part of my dungeon master brain when we were watching that.
The one I had, the one that I was my doesn't itch. I had it even before, was the Speak with the Dead rules that they were saying. I was like, that's not how Speak with the Dead works, though. Like, you just need to wait a couple of days and you can do it again. But I liked, again, it was what I did like is they introduced that it wasn't his ability, it was actually an item that gave him that. And then I was like, oh, okay, items can have those weird sort of weird things involved with them. So that made it okay for me there. But you did have a question. Who's your favorite character in the movie?
Oh, that's tough. Man. I mean, I guess I'm just a fan of Chris Pine. I would probably just choose him. Like if they wanted to do another D&D movie and he was still the center focus, I would not be upset by that.
I think that is the intention, from my understanding. That seems the intention to do him again for sure. His story wasn't really fully told, right? We only heard we sort of wrapped it up, but it wasn't completed, and it seems to be tied to the main bad guy. So I would only assume that he would be involved. But me, it's Simon, the wild magic sorcerer. Although I do have I wish they could have it was not expressively clear to me that he was wild magic when it happened. They had to tell us that he was, and I wish they had sort of done it a little differently in order to indicate that.
Yeah, and he had the weird disc thing on his hip,
which was never explained.
He could cast spells, but then he also had the disc thing that would just cast a random spell.
Yeah, I was assuming that they were trying to say that that's some sort of focus for his wild magic abilities. That's kind of what I put together myself. But it wasn't really well explained, and I wish it was. But his character, I thought, was really good. I really enjoyed watching him struggle with, well, am I competent? And I really, really enjoyed the what they did with attunement.
Right.
That attunement sort of what's better than, rather than just like, oh yeah, it took me 30 minutes and I'm now attuned.
Yeah, to me,
it was
that
sort
was
of a
their
puzzle.
secret room.
Yeah.
You know?
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I really enjoyed that. I really, really enjoyed that.
FF GoGo says it was a component.
Yeah, the
pouch.
focus. Yeah, a focus
Yeah.
takes the place of a component pouch. Yeah.
Interesting.
But
What D&D module would be a great movie?
That's a good question. Well, what are you asking? Like current 5e or
I think
all
any
of
module.
AD&D?
Yeah. Yeah. That's a good question.
That is a good question. I mean, there's so many options.
Yeah.
I'd like to see some of the probably some of the face stuff. I'd like to see some of the face stuff modules would be really good. Like even some of the recent ones, like Beyond the Witchlight stuff, I think is really good. There'd be some cool modules there. But in terms of like main story stuff, I think the why my brain is not working right now. Ravenloft stuff. I think the Ravenloft stuff would be really good for a D&D movie.
Oh, Ron.
What? No, yeah, you picked.
I was digging it up when you said it.
Sorry, I didn't mean to ruin that for you.
No, it's fine.
We have similar tastes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I think some of the Ravenloft ones would be really good.
Yeah, I think if there's there are modules, obviously, but I think if there was a setting that I would want to see them play with, because the one that they're in this time around is obviously Forgotten Realms, which is classic. And now that they've done that, I feel like they could branch out and do a Ravenloft setting, and you know what I mean?
Yep.
Yeah,
easily. And I think that one would be a lot. It's probably less fun generally, just because although they did really well with that, because the Red Wizards of Thay are not exactly like fun bad guys to fight. They're
real
really
dark.
horrible. Yeah, they're super dark. So I thought they did really well with that. So yeah, Ravenloft would work, I think, fairly well.
I mean, you could have moments of like, you could even have these characters get sucked into the mist and show up in Ravenloft, and then there could be humor there too, where you know they don't know the rules of how Ravenloft works,
right?
So when they come across their first undead monster and they can't just easily slay it, or it just comes back as soon as they kill it, it's like, we're not in Kansas anymore.
Which they did a little bit with the Red Wizards of Thay, right? They sort of introduced that too, where it was like, these particular specialized units are not just kill and be done. They come back, and so they sort of used a little bit of that Ravenloft stuff. But yeah, sure.
I do, now that I think about it, I do feel like they intentionally chose to avoid a lot of Lord of the Ring tropes.
Yep.
And
I think that's why we didn't see many elves or dwarves.
That's why you don't see elves. That's why you don't see dwarves. The dragon was completely different than Smog. Like you really are hard pressed to find any. And the halflings that they had.
Chunky boy, I really enjoyed him actually. The chunky dragon.
I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. I just said it was just very different than Lord of the Rings. I think they're just trying to separate themselves from that as much.
I think possible. I think you hit the nail on the head.
But that's all the more reason to have a character that isn't an elf or a dwarf or a human
be part of the party.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. Agreed.
Yeah.
Agreed on that. Yeah. Chunky dragon for the win, for sure. I enjoyed the chunky dragon a lot. I thought that was a lot of fun. They made him dumber than I thought a dragon would be, but it's also a chunky dragon, so I guess that's the trope, right? The trope is fat people are stupid. So, as a fat person, I can relate to why they would do that.
Wrong.
Yeah. Well, I'm also a dummy, so
no, you're not.
I know. No, I'm obviously being sarcastic, but it's a trope. It's a trope.
Yeah.
It's just like Southern, right? When people speak Southern, the trope is, they're somehow less intelligent, which is like, no, I've met Southern rocket scientists, guys. They are. There is a pretty good strange to it, but yeah.
There's a pretty good stand-up comedian bit that I heard. I don't remember who did it, but they were like, if Einstein, I think it was Bill Burr. It's like if Einstein was trying to tell people about the theory of relativity, and he had like just a
thick
really
Southern accent.
thick, like over the top hillbilly accent,
No
nobody
one
would
would've
have listened to him.
Exactly.
No one would have listened to
Yep,
him. Nobody
yep.
would have believed him.
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh, prejudice. Yeah, that's. But I still very much enjoyed Chonky Dragon. I thought that was a fun little thing that they did, and very destructive and very damaging, like a dragon would be, and believable from the way they got out. You run. You don't fight it.
Yeah.
You run. Even the very powerful paladin's like, no, we're just running. We're not going to fight this thing.
I stabbed it in the head,
and
we did
leave.
not phase it.
Yeah, did not phase
all.
it. Just keep going. So that was a lot of fun for sure.
Yeah,
I would love to see.
I hope they have a beholder. If they do another one, I hope they have a beholder.
Dude, you heard my head. That's exactly what I was like. I hope we see a beholder. I hope we see. If we don't see a beholder, then something like a hook horror would be very cool. Or or even. I love
Underdark.
that they did. Yeah, Underdark.
They could just
stuff
go
at
down
all.
in the Underdark,
and he mentions it, right? He mentions it as they go by.
Well, they
and
go
I was
there,
like, oh, right. And I was hoping we'd see more of it, but it was like it sort of just touched on. They had a mimic. That was in the maze. They had a mimic. But I really would love to see a mind flayer.
Oh yeah.
I would really love to see a mind flayer. Now we're gonna get a bunch of that, I think, in Baldur's Gate 3 when it drops, which is gonna have very cinematic story to it. But yeah, I would love to see something like a beholder, a hook horror, some of the more classic stuff. And I got to give it to them that they gave us a displacer beast. I really enjoyed that. And we got the gelatinous
That's
cube.
one of my favorite monsters.
Gelatinous cube was great. Yeah, mine too. I love the displacer beast. And gelatinous cube, which I love. They did that really well, I thought. Fun. They did a little fun scene with that. Acknowledge that you stay in there too long and it disintegrates you. So yeah, I thought there was some really good stuff there that they also have opportunities to grow in the next couple of movies. So I hope we see that. Oh yeah, they did have Intellect Devourers, which was super cool and a fun little bit where like none of them were smart enough to be detected. That was fun. That was certainly fun. So
accurate.
But yeah. Accurate. All right, we are almost at 2 hours. So
I know.
You got extras this time.
Yeah.
It's what happens when you get Jared and I in a room. We will talk forever, especially about D&D. Sure. So thank you everybody for joining us today. That is the end of today's Cooldown. Our extra injected more because of D&D movie and a variety of other things for all of you. Again, I want to thank you all for showing up, for buying merch, for helping us make this show continue. Because again, without all of you, none of this happens. So
yeah, good point, David Gen Pro. This Wednesday will be the grand finale, episode 2 of the Soiree Fantastique, and it gets crazy. Let me tell you,
it does. It gets real crazy. It gets super crazy,
especially the show within a show that we put on, which I think happens right at the top. So yeah. definitely tune in for that.
Yes, and some laughs there for sure. And also, just if you weren't here before and it wasn't clear, campaign 2 will be starting up very soon, back in the new studio. So keep a lookout for more information on that. We'll be getting those out in the next week or two about when you can expect that to happen. In the meantime, check out our web page, thedungeonrun.tv, and you can check out our shop. I believe if I just type in !merch. Da-da, there it is. Oh, moderate.
And there's new stuff, right? There's a new t-shirt.
There's some new stuff. We got a new t-shirt. We got two new t-shirts. A plain black t-shirt with white lettering and a sort of splash of green on there. We've also got a new shot glass, a $7 shot glass with our logo that pairs well with the pint glass. And then at the top of the show last week, people were like, "Where's Milo's bowl?" I was like, "Well, it's up there." So I put that sort of in the front if you're curious about Milo's bowl as well. All right, I think that's it. Jared, thank you so much for joining us today. Man. It was a lot of fun. It's always good to talk with you. You always have very smart things to say. Well thought out. So thank you so much. Thank again all of you. Thanks Just Jules. Thank you Fail Waffle, Kitty Scritches, Tapartos, Brianna, Frankly Delicious, David Gen Pro, all of you out there, the Dungeon Speedrun, all of you out there, thank you so much for interacting. Scully's my homegirl. It's lovely to see you. And we will see you in a couple of days. Stick around. I'm going to send us, we're going to raid, you know what? Let's raid 8-Bit D. If you guys aren't familiar with 8-Bit D, wonderful streamer. I played D&D with her over on some other channels. She played a bard. She's very wonderful. Is sort of heading up the Game On to end Lupus. So give her her love. Tell her I sent you, and we will see you guys next time.
Bye.
Bye.